The Weminuche Wilderness lies in the southwestern region of Colorado. It is 499,771 acres, making it the largest wilderness in Colorado. Its landscape is diverse with many different mountains, rivers, trees, boulders, and wide open areas. The beauty of the wilderness, along with the hundreds of trail miles, attract many tourists every year. My dad and I fell into this category of tourists this summer in 2020. We took a road trip together, and hiking the Weminuche Wilderness was on the agenda. This particular trail was chosen because he had backpacked up there a few times about 15 years ago. I was too young to go with him at the time, but I remember when he would return, he had a scraggly beard that tickled when he hugged us. My favorite part was when he told stories about his trips into the wilderness. Ever since then, I've always been intrigued with visiting the Weminuche Wilderness. I was fortunate this year that my dad and I could go into the wilderness together. Now we have stories to tell about our time in the wilderness, which I will forever cherish. And this hat pattern is the product of our time in Colorado, thus it was appropriate to call it the Weminuche Wilderness Trail Toboggan. This ribbed beanie looks knit, but is made effortlessly with a crochet hook. There's tons of stretch, so the hat fits comfortably on the head, and it's easily customizable. You can add a folded brim or add a pom-pom to the top. Mix and match the colors. Whatever you choose, this hat is a classic to add to your fall and winter wardrobe. I want to thank you for joining me in this video, and if you'd like to stick around, I'll show you exactly how to make one of your own. Now let's begin with the materials necessary to complete this project. The first item you need is a measuring tape. You will use this to take your head measurements to ensure that the correct size is made. Next, you need a 4.25 millimeter crochet hook. Also, you will need yarn for this project. And in this video, I am using Yarn Bee Soft and Sleek DK, which I will be holding double stranded the whole time. But any weight 3 yarn held double will also work. Just be sure to check your gauge. Or I also have directions for using a weight 1 yarn, also held double, in my written pattern, which is available for purchase, or there's also a free version on my blog, and all of those links are in the description. Next, you need a tapestry needle, and this will be used to seam the edges and the top of your hat together. And then finally, you need a pair of scissors to snip the excess yarn at the end. And a pom-pom is optional, so I don't actually have that pictured here because I'm not adding one to this hat. But if you want a faux fur pom-pom, pick those up at your local craft store or on Amazon, or make your own out of spare yarn. So grab your yarn and a hook, and we will begin by making a magic circle. Now, you want to leave approximately an 18 to 20 inch tail, because we will be using this later. Now, I forgot to mention, but I am holding this yarn double, which I think you can see from here. But anyway, once you have your yarn tail, you want to have the yarn pinched between your thumb and your index finger, and the loose yarn should be hanging down, and the part attached to the skein is what you want to wrap over the top 2 fingers. And then you're going to go under and over again, but making an X. Now pinch the yarn that you wrapped over a second time between your ring finger and your middle finger. Now grab your crochet hook, and you're going to insert it under that first loop of the X. Then you're going to hook the other part of yarn that's behind it. And then you're just going to twist your hook towards you. And then you can release your fingers from inside of that circle. So you should have something like this, and you have that loop of yarn, and you want to secure the magic circle, so we're just going to chain 1. So now what we have here is this adjustable loop, and when you pull it on one side, it's going to get bigger, and when you pull the tail, it gets smaller. But for now, I'm just going to make it a little big because we're going to be working stitches inside of it for our hat. We have the foundation to the top of our hat ready, and that chain stitch that we just made does not count as a stitch. We'll just use it as a slip stitch. But now we are ready to begin making chains for the length of our hat. Now you will be chaining the number of stitches according to the pattern, just depending on whatever size hat you're making, but mine will be 36 chains, and then you will add one at the end for a turning chain. So I will be chaining 37 stitches total. Now to make a chain, you yarn over and then pull that yarn through the loop, and you yarn over and pull that through the loop. And then you're just going to continue this all the way until you have the number of chain stitches that the pattern states. Go ahead and pause the video and catch up with me whenever you have all of your chain stitches. You should have something similar to this whenever you're done with your chain stitches. The magic circle is on the left side, on the opposite of our crochet hook. And now we are going to begin row number 1, which you will half double crochet in every stitch across. Except for the turning chain, we will skip that one, which is right here, and then we will make our first half double crochet into the second chain from the hook. And I'll go really slowly here to show you how to do a half double crochet. So first you yarn over, and then you will insert your hook into the top loop of that second chain. And then whenever you get the hook under there, you yarn over again and pull it through that loop. So now you have 3 loops on the crochet hook. You will yarn over one more time and then pull that yarn all the way through those 3 loops. And that is how you make a half double crochet. So I'll show you that again. So you want to yarn over and then insert your hook through that top loop of the chain. Then yarn over again and pull the yarn through that loop. Yarn over one more time and pull that yarn through all 3 loops on the hook. And that's another half double crochet. So you're going to continue this process all the way up to the top of the chain. And if you need more assistance with this stitch, I do have a video on this, and I'll link it in my resources down below. Go ahead and pause the video and complete row number 1. So I have made it to the end of the row, and I have one more half double crochet to make, because this one right here, that first chain does not count, remember? That is going to count as a slip stitch, not as your first stitch. So I'm just making my last half double crochet in this chain, and once I'm done, now I have that whole row of half double crochet, and you should have something similar to this. And this represents the front side of our hat. So this is the side that we want to show. Now, you have the magic circle still on the left, and what you want to do is attach every single row to the magic circle every time you reach it. So how you do that is you're going to make a slip stitch into the magic circle. To do that, just insert your hook and then draw that yarn through and pull it to the front. And then pull the yarn that's still on your hook through that second loop right there. So I'm pulling it through. All right. And then we chain 1 after this. And that is how you attach the row to the magic circle. And why you want to do that is because we're going to pull that magic circle closed, and that's how the top of our hat is going to form. So don't forget this step. Every time you reach it, the magic circle, make sure that you slip stitch and then chain 1. So now we're going to turn our work, and we're now on the back side. When we add more stitches to the hat, you'll see what I mean by the back side or the wrong side. But for now, we're starting row 2, and you want to skip the chain stitch and the slip stitch. Both of these do not count as a stitch. So this is our first half double crochet of row 2, and this is what you want to work into. Now, we're going to be using a new stitch called half double crochet in the third loop. And I say new stitch, this was new to me anyway. So this is normally where you would make a half double crochet through that top part. But we're not making a normal half double crochet. We're looking for the third loop. So let me show you the top of the stitch first, so this makes sense. So any top of a crochet stitch is going to have that V at the top. So that counts as the first loop, the second loop. And now when we turn it to the back side, there's that bar right there. And this is the third loop. So this is where you want to make your half double crochet in every row from here on out, at least from the back side. So we're going to insert our hook into that third loop, and then it's just a normal half double crochet from here. So here's my first half double crochet of row 2. And I'll show you that a few more times, and I'll go slow so that you can see what I'm doing. But we're looking at the back side here, and you can see all those bars. So now I'm getting ready to make my second half double crochet in the third loop. So remember, the top V, those first 2 loops, we're not working into those. We're going to work from the back side, and there's that bar, and this represents the third loop. And this is where we make a normal half double crochet. So here we have our second one, and we're just going to continue this process all the way till the end of this row. So I'm working another one into that third loop, and this is my third half double crochet here. And I'll show you a couple more times now, but you'll notice that the top stitches of the row are going to be pushed to the front since we're working into the back side of this stitch. And it will get easier as you go along because you'll be able to see the bars since the front stitches are being pushed to the front. Just continue this all the way down and go ahead and pause the video and meet me at the end of this row. So I've actually made it to the end of this row, and I have only one more stitch left, and I wanted to show it to you really fast because this V right here sometimes gets lost. I just wanted to show you that this is a stitch. And that third loop is kind of hard to find sometimes, but there is that last stitch, and I don't want you to miss it because you will come out with uneven rows. So just be sure to count the stitches as you go. And to finish that row, you just chain and then turn. So now we have our front side of the hat, or the right side. This is what you want to show. You can see that the tops of the stitches, when you push them forward by working in the third loop, you create this braid effect. I mean, it looks very unique to me. It looks almost like you're knitting. And whenever you flip the fabric over, this is the back side or the wrong side, and it's just made up of all these squiggly lines, and this is just what happens whenever you work from the back side. I'm going to go ahead and flip it back over to the front side because this is the side we will be working on, and we want to continue this pattern of pushing the tops of the stitches to the front so that you can create this ribbed look. We are able to achieve this by inserting our hook into a different place. So this row right here, we're actually looking at the back side of a half double crochet. So that's why the bar in the front looks familiar. If we were to crochet here, we'd actually be pushing the tops of the stitches to the back. And that's not what we want. We want to push them to the front to match that row above. So for row 3, when you're on a right side row, you will actually be crocheting into the third loop on the back side. And I'm trying to show you here, there's that slanted line right here, and this is the third loop. Again, the V at the top of the stitch, that counts as the first 2, and then on the back side of a right side row, this is the third loop, and I just made a half double crochet there. So let me show you that again. Now, I do find it easier if I hold it vertically, so you'll see me holding it differently whenever I'm working in rows. But here is the second stitch that I'm going to be working with. So that counts as the first 2, and then this is the third loop, and it's just that slanted line that's closest to the V at the top of the stitch. So there's another stitch. And I'm going to show you this several times because this one's kind of confusing. So this is the stitch that is next. And again, I'm just working into that slanted line that is closest to the top of the row. And we will continue this all the way until we get to the top of the hat. If you find that I'm going a little too fast or you can't see this as well, I apologize. I did make a separate video on just half double crochet in the third loop, and I'm working in rows just as we are for this hat. So I'll add a card up at the top right section of this video. So if you need to refer to that, I do use a bigger weight yarn, so it's a little bit easier to see. But I want to show you one last time. This is the third loop. It's that slanted line that is closest to the top of the row. And that is where you make your half double crochet on the third loop when you're working on a right side row. But now I'm just going to take my, my hook out for just a second so that I can show you what we're doing. And you can see the first few stitches that I put on here, the braid, the tops of the stitches are being pushed forward. And it's being pushed forward on the same side as row number 2. And this is the look that we want to achieve to get that rib knit. Now, right here, I have made it to the end of the row, and I just wanted to show you this last stitch. It can be kind of difficult to see just because it can get lost with that chain 1 and slip stitch. But I encourage you to count your stitches as you go so that you don't miss this last stitch. So here that one is completed, and then I wanted to show you how to connect this row to the magic circle just one last time. When you reach the magic circle, you're going to slip stitch so that the row becomes connected to the top of the hat. So really slowly you put your hook under the magic circle, draw a loop with that yarn, and then you're going to pull that loop through the second loop on the hook. And then you will chain 1 so that you can turn to start row number 4. And we will be on the back side or the wrong side of the hat once again. And this is where you repeat row 2 because you want to push the top of the stitches to the front so that you can continue the braided look. And this is going to make that knit 2 purl 1 type ribbing. I'll get you started on this next row. Even though it is a repeat of row 2, we're going to skip the chain and the slip stitch and go right into that third loop, which is that back bar of the half double crochet. So you're making a normal half double crochet, but into that back bar. So here I have completed that first one, and then I'll show you another time. That back bar, just make a normal half double crochet into that. And then you will continue this all the way down until you reach the end of the row. Then you'll chain 1, and I'll meet you there and show you how to complete that next row just one last time. So I've made it to the end of the 4th row, and now I want to show you how to do the 5th row, which is repeating row number 3. So remember, we're not making our half double crochet in the front side, we're making the half double crochet on the back side, even though it is a right side row. So we're looking for that slanted line that is closest to the top of the row, and I'm getting it into that first stitch. And here I've completed that first half double crochet in the third loop, and we're looking for the second stitch, which is right here, and then that slanted line, that's the one closest to the V of the stitch, and we make our half double crochet there. Then I'll show you this one last time for this row. You look for the next stitch, and then you look for the slanted line directly under it, and that is right here. So I will make a normal half double crochet right there. And this is how all of the tops of the rows, those V's, are going to be pushed to the front to make the braid. Now remember, whenever you get to the end of this row, you will be at the magic circle, and so you must slip stitch and then chain 1 to continue on to the next row. Here is what my fabric looks like so far with 5 rows completed, and you can start to see that there is that 2x1 ribbing, which is what we want for this hat. Now you achieve this by repeating rows 2 and 3 according to the pattern. Now make sure that you follow the pattern according to your measurements. for this hat, I want mine to measure 14 inches, so I'm making 45 rows. So just pay attention to that with the pattern. And then whenever you have finished all of your rows, go ahead and meet me back here and I will show you how to assemble this into a hat. Now we can seam our sides together. So right here, I have already taken the time to weave in my ends, except for the tail from the last row. And this yarn tail should be long because we're going to use it to seam. And then I have the yarn tail still from the top with the magic circle, and I'll show you what to do with that. But at this point, if you haven't weaved in any of your ends, go ahead and do so. And just leave those 2 yarn tails from the last row and from your magic circle. And then we're going to grab our tapestry needle and we're going to seam those sides together. When you put your hat back folded like so with the edges together, you want the ribbing to be on the outside. This is the right side. And then on the inside or the wrong side, you have the squiggly lines. So you do want to work with right sides together, facing outwards. And then we just want to grab our tapestry needle and we will thread our yarn tail from the last row that we made, and we'll thread our needle with that, and then we're going to use that yarn to seam up the sides. Now I left quite a bit of yarn tail here, and I would say probably 15 to 18 inches or so, maybe even more. You just want to make sure that you have enough to seam up the entire sides. So I'm flipping the hat this way so that it is easier for you to see. But now let's look at where we're actually going to be seaming. So the top chains are what we want to push forward, just like we did for each row, except instead of using our crochet hook, we're going to be using the tapestry needle. And we're actually going to be inserting the tapestry needle into the 3rd loop like we would with our crochet hook. So these are on this side at least, this is where we want to put our tapestry needle every time we end up on this side. And instead of going from the normal way that we crochet, we're actually going to go from, I'm going to say bottom to top, just so direction that I'm going. And then you pull that yarn all the way through, and I think I left too much yarn. We'll see how much I end up with at the end, but right now it's just getting tangled, so you probably don't have to leave yours as long as I did. But go ahead and pull all of that yarn through, and then we're going to go to the other side and look where we will insert our needle. So on this side, this is where we started with the chain, with the row of, with the chain stitches. And you are going to insert your yarn into those chain spaces, and you can kind of see how it almost spirals. And this is where we want to put our needle. So I'll put mine into the first chain, and then I'll just pull my yarn all the way through. And then I want to keep it a little loose whenever I get to here, because we'll pull it tight after we have several more stitches done. But this seaming technique is invisible or nearly invisible, and it's called the mattress stitch. I don't know if I remembered to mention that or not, but it's a really cool technique, and I like to use it for a lot of projects. So we're just going to repeat that same process, and we will be working, I'll say this is the bottom piece and then the other side is the top piece, but we're working from the front side to the back side, or bottom to top whenever we insert the needle. So I'm back to, let's say, the bottom side of the fabric or of the hat. We're just going to insert our needle from front side to back side or bottom to top into that 3rd loop, and then you pull your yarn, and you're going to see that it's almost like you're lacing tennis shoes. So now we're on the top side of the hat, and we want to find the next chain space, I guess. And that's where I put my first one. So now I'm looking for that second one, and I go from top to bottom with this side, or it's always from the right side to the wrong side whenever you're inserting your needle. And then you just pull that, and you can keep it a little loose. That's fine. We'll pull it tight after we have more stitches. So we're on the bottom of the hat again, and we find that third loop, and we insert our needle from right side to wrong side into the third loop right there. And then you pull that all the way through, and then we're on the opposite side, and you just find that next chain space. Trying to find it for you. That was the second one, and here's that third one, and I'm inserting the needle from the right side to the wrong side. And then again, we're just going to repeat this. Look for that third loop and insert your needle from right side to wrong side. Pull it all the way through. Make sure you don't get your yarn caught on something like I did just now. And then find that next chain space and insert your needle from right side to wrong side, or top to bottom on this one. And then just pull that all the way through. And you're going to continue this all the way up to the top of your hat. But after you have a couple inches or so, you want to pull the yarn tail, you want to pull on the end so that you can close up the seams. Otherwise, once you get to the top, it's harder to pull that yarn all the way through. And I'll show you that here in just a minute. But you want to continue this mattress stitch a little bit further. And you're going to get very good at this. You have quite a few stitches to seam up on this side. We're on the bottom part of that hat. So again, put your needle into that third loop from right side to wrong side and just pull the yarn through. And I understand this is very repetitive. I apologize, but I want you to get the picture, and you're going to be a pro at the mattress stitch. So we made it to the other side now, and you want to insert your needle again from right side to wrong side into that next chain space. And this will be the last stitch for now, and I'll show you what to do next. So we have about an inch or so that we've seamed up together, and you can see that it's a little loose. So we tug on the yarn tail end gently, and you can see that the sides of the hat were pulled together, and it's created a nice and tight seam. So you will continue this process of using the mattress stitch. Make sure that you pay attention to the stitches and that you're matching them up, because you want to have an evenly seamed hat whenever you get to the end. You don't want one end being longer than the other. So every time that you have about an inch or so seamed, go ahead and pull that yarn tail tight so that the seam comes together, and just continue this process all the way to the end of the hat. And you can go ahead and pause the video here and catch up, and I will show you what to do whenever we get to the top of the hat. So I've reached the top of the hat, and I have the yarn tail end that's still pretty long from seaming up the mattress stitch. Then I have my yarn tail on the left side that is attached to the magic circle. And the top of my hat is still open. We'll get to that in just a second. But I wanted to show you what the seam looks like. After the mattress stitch, our hat has come together, and it is nearly invisible. The stitches that we push to the top by seaming into the third loop actually push them so the ribbing matches. And I hope that you can really see this well and that yours turned out like this. Let's move on and finish up this hat. So now is for the magic part. So we've come to the top, and we are going to close up this circle. Now you can see where you slip stitched every other row. You can kind of see those stitches along the top. And we want to pull all of those together so that we have a closed top for the hat. So we're going to leave this yarn tail till the end. We'll weave it in whenever we're done, but that was just what we used to seam up the sides. So we're just going to pull on the magic circle yarn tail, and you'll see that the circle will start to close up. And you can tug on it gently. Don't pull it so you don't break the yarn, but you're going to pull it as much as you can, and it's not going to close completely just because if you have more stitches on it, it won't be able to close. But I will show you exactly what to do with that. So I've pulled mine probably as much as it's going to go. So I'm left with just a tiny hole. So don't worry if yours is bigger. I'll show you what to do with it. Just make sure that you pull it as much as you can. So to secure this into place, you'll want to tie both of those yarn tails together and then pull it really tight. And I'll show you how to do that right now. So it's just a standard knot, you know, just make a knot, just tie them together and then pull them tightly. That way your hat will stay and you'll end up with something just like this. You just have two yarn tails tied together and the top of your hat is all cinched up now with just a tiny hole. And don't worry about the yarn tails. We're going to weave them in on the inside, but for now we want to close up that hole that's at the top. So we're going to use the yarn tail that was at the end of our magic circle. So thread your tapestry needle now, and I will show you an easy way to seam up the top of the hat even more. So we're just going to look for the stitches that are on the top, and we're going to insert our needle. Sorry, this is a little small. It's kind of difficult, but I'll try to show you as best as I can. So insert your needle into probably 4 to 5 stitches on one side. You can start from anywhere, it won't matter. Just put it through the middle of those stitches and then pull that yarn tail all the way through. And then you want to go diagonally, so, or just like across, and we're going to do the same thing. So I just pulled that yarn across, and I'm going to insert my tapestry needle into the top few stitches on that side. And sorry, these stitches are tight. I'm struggling a little bit. But once you get your needle through a few, that's probably 3 to 4, just pull it all the way through and then tug on that yarn to pull it closed. You're going to see that the circle is going to get smaller. So now rotate probably about 90 degrees, just go into a few more stitches, just as we did a moment ago. Pull that yarn through. Now go across from that side, and we're going to insert our needle into a few of those stitches, like so, and then pull it through and yank on it tightly, and you're going to see that circle close. And mine won't require that much. An adult size hat will require more of this, and that's totally fine. You'll just have to play with it to where you like the top of the hat. Make sure that you don't just use the same, say like 4 sides. Make sure that you get all of the circles so that there's no like tiny holes whenever you put your hat on. And this is where a pom-pom is nice. If the top of it, you don't like the way that it looks as much, the pom-pom will help hide that. But I have no fear, you can make it look nice. Just follow this simple guide. And so this is the top of my hat. I'm just pulling it tightly, and I think I'm ready to secure it. So I can just pull that yarn through the middle. Oh wait, actually, now that I look at it, I think I have a slight hole. I need to do this again. See, this just shows that you have to play with it. There's no real science or method to this. Just, I can't tell you how many times to do it. Just play with it and see, just see what works best for your hat. So I'm just repeating this a few more times. All right, so I've pulled it nice and tight, and I'm searching for any holes in the hat just to make sure I didn't miss anything. And I think that this is good, so I'm just going to put my tapestry needle down through the center of that hat, and I'm going to pull it and flip my, I'll flip my hat inside out because this will make this part easier. So you can see my tapestry needle is through the center of my hat. I'm just going to pull that, and I want to pull it one more time gently so that that circle at the top remains closed. Now I'm going to weave in my yarn tail a little bit differently to start out with, because I want to make sure that this circle stays closed and that my yarn tail does not come undone. So I'm going to do something similar to what I was doing on the outside. I'm going to pick up some stitches along that circle, and I'll do like a few, like 4 or 5, just like I was doing, and then pull the yarn tail through. But instead of going to the opposite side, I'm just going to continue going all the way around the circle, picking up a few stitches as I go, or picking up a few stitches at a time is what I meant. I am just going to continue this until I have made it all the way around the circle. And honestly, you can do this as many times as you want if you want to go back around the other side of the circle just to make sure that your hat will not come undone at the top. Totally fine, just whatever you are comfortable with. So I'm just going to do this a couple more times, and then I think I feel comfortable with the way that this hat will be, and I'm just tugging on it. But now I'm going to let go of this yarn tail. Now it might make sense to you if you were to weave this in right now, but I want to make sure that it stays secured, so I'm actually going to bring the other yarn tail, which I'm going to clip right here because it's way too long. I left a lot on there from the mattress stitch, so just get rid of that if yours is the same way. But anyway, I'm going to bring this one through the center, just like I did the other one, because I want to tie them together to make sure that it's going to stay together, or so that it's tied together just one more time. So I'm going to bring the needle back through about the place where the yarn tail was coming from, and then I'm going to pull it on the inside. So I'm flipping my hat inside out so it's easier to work with. And here it is. I'm just going to pull that through all the way. And I like to leave the needle threaded. That way I can just go back in and use it. And then I tie these two yarn tails together, just a simple knot. Jeez, sorry, I'm getting them all confused. So just tie them, and that's going to help secure it. Now I do it a couple of times, that way I know for sure that yarn is not going anywhere. So now you just have the two ends, and you want to weave those in on the inside of the hat so that they're hidden. So here I have my needle threaded, and I'm just going to weave in this end another time. I'm just going through a few stitches at the top where it was at, and then I'm going to bring it through the side of the hat because I just want to make sure that I leave a long enough tail in case it does come undone. I can fix it, but also it's going to just help to secure it even more. So I'm just pulling it through those backside stitches so that the yarn doesn't show through at the top. And then I like to skip one stitch, don't go into that one, skip it, and then go back up through the same side that you went with that needle, and then pull your yarn through. And you don't want to pull it too tight, otherwise you're going to scrunch up those stitches and you'll be able to see it. So just do this method a few more times, just to make sure that your hat's going to stay. And then I like to pull on that yarn just slightly and then snip it, and then you can pull it back into place so that that yarn tail is hidden. Now you can't even see that one. So now we have one more tail to do since we had the two yarn tails. So just thread your needle and then do the same exact thing. Since you've seen me do this before, I did speed up this portion just a little bit. But I'll show you again. You're just gonna go through the top of those stitches just to get you started, so you can hide that yarn tail, and then make sure that you go through the back stitches on the side of the hat so that you can hide that yarn tail further. And again, you don't want to go through the stitches where they'll show on the front side. So make sure you go on those back loops. They're actually pretty easy to get to with this stitch pattern. And then whenever you go through one side, I like to go back up and make sure that you skip that stitch. Then you just go back up and then you kind of just weave your way around the hat until you feel comfortable with the way that you have woven in those ends. And then once you're done, you just clip off that yarn and then you'll see how it just is hidden on the inside. So let me flip the hat right side out again so that you can just see what it looks like with the top of the hat all seamed together. So here we have our finished hat, and you'll notice at the bottom that it does tend to curl up, and that's just due to the nature of the stitch. And if you want to see how I block it, I'm going to show you that in the next segment. I will be steam blocking for this method, so you need a few pins, and then you will also need a steamer. The rest of the video, I'm just going to show you what I did, and I did speed it up, so it's not in real time. I'm just showing you the process of how I steam blocked the hat. And if you like having this segment in the tutorial, please let me know in the comments or just hit that like button so that I know that you enjoyed this, because this isn't usually included in the tutorials, but in some patterns it just says to block. Now, whenever I first started out, I didn't know what blocking was. So this would have been helpful for me. And this is the first time I've ever done this. So let me know if you liked it or not.